because I try to be mean. That's why I say bring a soft or a hard copy. If you had trouble getting to where the syllabus is, I've given you instructions here. Was anybody not able to access Blackboard? Good, so I'm assuming we all know how to get on. Perfect. Because what I will do is each week, I will post the same location when you got your syllabus. I will be posting a folder, and I will call it Week 1, Introduction, Week 2, whatever it is that we're covering, and I will put slides up there, any materials, supplemental readings. You'll have a folder for templates, which we'll come to later on. You can go under course content for everything, and all the folders will be there. I usually upload before the class that week. I'll try to get ahead a little bit, but there's some things that need to hold back because I want you to focus on some assignment before you get another piece of information. But you can go over every week and find all the materials for our class. Okay, so if you have your syllabus, take it out. There's 2 sections listed there. That's only for my own sanity because I teach 2 sections of that class, so it's easier for me to have 1 document and 2 of the same. You can see my name and details. For those of you who've been my student before and you knew my office, it has changed this year because we moved. I am not in use, I'm in favor. On the 4th floor, 463. And I tend to be on the Rose Hill campus this semester, Mondays and Thursdays. The other days I'm down at Lincoln Center. So I don't put office hours because in the past it's been a waste, nobody comes, we always have to schedule another time. I am certainly open to meeting for whatever questions or concerns you might have, but just send me an email and we'll schedule time. Ideally Mondays and Thursdays will be the best. If you do need another day, I can work that out. I just need a bit of advance notice. So if you email me that morning on a Tuesday and say, Dr. Troy Roden, I'd like to meet with you, I'm probably not going to be able to do it that day because I'm either already at Lincoln Center or on my way down there. So we just need to be a bit proactive and manage that. All of you are familiar about our integrated core curriculum. So everybody gets how this works. You have business classes and then you have an integrated project course that's 1 credit, and we'll be pulling from those other courses. So your business courses this semester are Business Communication 2, Information Systems 2, and Operations and Production Management. And so we will be pulling from things we learned in those classes into our project into this class. Required text. There's actually no textbook. Everything you need will really be coming from me, whether it's something I've developed or it's supplemental readings. So your first one is this course packet. Very important, that outlines what we're going to do in this class. And even more so is going to be your statement of work document. Now you don't have that yet, and it's not posted on Blackboard purposely. That will come out in week 3. And we will talk about what is a statement of work and what do we use it for. But that is going to be the other document that you will absolutely need to refer to complete your project. So it's those 2. I will be posting on Blackboard right next to where I have the syllabus so that you can see the course packet and the statement of work. Required materials, obviously you need Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office access. Check your emails frequently because sometimes I send updates before class or I let you know if there's announcements. So make sure you check your emails before coming to class. And in our class, essentially what we are doing this semester is taking the next step after the project you did last year. So can you all think back this time last year? I know it's hard, there's been a lot of major events since then. But think back to that marketing IP class that you had, the marketing challenge project. What was that experience like for you? What, stressful? What made it stressful? A lot of work every week. What else? Overwhelming, and what was overwhelming? Well, our integrated project class is going to be similar to that. However, as I said, you'll have fewer classes to manage, and a huge component to this class is actually project management. And we do that purposely. Many of you are thinking, well, geez, why didn't we do that before we did the marketing IP? Wouldn't that have made sense? We want you to go through the experience of realizing what it is like to juggle a lot of moving parts. Because for many of you, when you get into your careers, your first jobs, you're going to be expected to be able to manage a lot of moving parts. Nobody might not sit down and tell you, put together a plan for this, or this is how you might think about doing that. So we want you to have that experience of getting your head around managing a lot of different tasks. This year, a large part of what we focus in this class is how do you start managing a project effectively? What are all of those components? What are the templates we use? If my supervisor says, can you put together a project plan, take out the statement of work we have, we want you to be familiar with those terms and what it means. So that's going to be a large part of what we do in this course. So the learning objectives are first and foremost to do a project where you understand more so about your anticipated career field. That is one of the largest things that we can offer is what are we doing for our jobs, or what do we think we want to do? And with that, we're then going to, on the side, while we do that project, learn how to effectively manage a project. How do we use those templates? We're going to learn networking skills. We're going to have a couple of speakers in this semester. So various opportunities for you to learn how to best present yourself in those situations. My teaching philosophy, I won't bore you and read it all, but essentially, you can read it in your spare time, but my philosophy is not to stand up and lecture. Today, we'll be doing a lot of talking in the first half because I'm obviously going over requirements. However, I do expect all of you to participate. All of our classes will have some hands-on component where you are working in your teams on whatever it is that we're talking about. So for example, when there's a week and we're talking about communication plans, well, guess what? You're going to have a template, you're going to break off into groups, and you're going to start working on your own communication plan for your project team. So you have ample time to start activities in class and then finish them as your group outside of class. Expectations. I do expect everybody to attend. Like last year, you're allowed one excused absence. We only meet 13 times a semester for an hour and 15 minutes. It's a very, very short amount of time to get all of this material in. If you are going to be absent more than once, you need to have an excused absence from your class dean sent to me. Now, this is very serious because by the government standards, we have to prove that our students are in our classes. So I will have to take attendance every class because twice a semester, faculty, we get asked who is attending and who's not attending. And they have to submit those to federal agencies because that is what determines our funding. So that is the purpose. It's not that we don't trust you. I would like to treat us as adults and figure that if you feel it's appropriate to be here, you should. But we do have to take attendance for federal regulations. Deadlines. All of your deadlines are in your course packet in the table. You can see when things are due, and obviously every course every class I will remind you what to do for the next class. Like attendance, I'm very firm on deadlines too. So when something is due, it's due. If I know emergencies come up, certainly, and I will be flexible in those situations, but you need to get in touch with me as soon as possible. Because if not, every day that something is due late or submitted late, it's a letter grade deduction. Because all of your assignments are going to be built in. So if you miss one early on, you're not going to be able to really keep up. You need to have done that before you can move to the next step. And participation. As I said, I'm not going to stand up here and just lecture. That would be boring for you and certainly boring for me. So I expect you to ask questions. If something doesn't make sense, if you don't agree with something, if you think there's a better way. When we are in groups, I expect you to participate in your groups, do the work. When we have a class debrief and I ask you to tell us what happened when you were working on that, I'm going to look to each and every one of you to participate. And you'll see some of our participation points actually go for activities that we do in class. So if you're absent that day, you can't really get those participation points if you miss that activity. And that's why it's very important that you are here every week. Okay, technology. I don't mind if you use your computers in class. In fact, I encourage it because you'll have templates for things and you might want to actually work with them in soft copy so you can be filling them out. However, I ask that you are not surfing the internet, checking email, and as I walk around and when you're in your groups, if I see that, I will ask you to turn it off. And if it becomes a regular occurrence, unfortunately, we're going to have to get a bit parental and ask you not to bring your laptop into class because it's important that we have your focus. It's only an hour and 15 minutes. So please be professional and be respectful in that matter. I like to treat classrooms as if we were an actual organization. And if you were at your internship or your job, you certainly wouldn't want your supervisor walking around seeing you doing that when you're working. So try to treat our classroom the same way. There will be some assignments you'll need to submit online into our Blackboard discussion board. So to do that, I will be posting a forum and I'll walk you through how to post. Does anybody not know how to submit an assignment online in that way? You've done it in all of your other classes. I presume by junior year you probably did. If not, I've given you the instructions here, and you can also obviously come and talk to me. All right, so those are the logistical issues. Before I get into telling you the overview of what our class is going to be about, what's our project. All right, if you are following along, turn to page 6, the overview of the integrated project. So our project this semester is called Workforce of the Future. And as I said, it's pulling from 3 of your other business classes. There are going to be 2 components to your final deliverables for this class. One is going to be an oral presentation. So you will have to get up and present your findings for the research that your group has done. The second is going to be the project management portfolio. And by that I mean each week we're eventually going to learn different tools that we need to use in order to manage our project. So for the project management portfolio, there are going to be 6 sub-deliverables. Now all of that is outlined in here, and it will be outlined in your statement of work. And it will become clear because as we go through this each week, you'll see how we're building it and which ones that we're working on. So the components to this course are to both complete both of those deliverables, meaning all the project management portfolio and your oral presentation, but also to manage your project effectively. So there will be times in class where we actually are going to talk to our groups and see what's working. Now that you've done certain tasks, what would you have done differently? What would have been useful? Or if a team says, hey, we're really struggling with this, well, what are you doing about it? How are you trying to solve it? So we'll work through a lot of those issues and have chances to talk about how we might address them. So if you follow along the context of the project down at the bottom there, the main purposes of this whole project, of Workforce of the Future, are those 4 items. We're going to be baselining 3 different jobs in a career field. Okay? So we're going to start today talking just generally, what careers are you interested in? That is going to be the basis for how we start dividing up our groups. So we're going to, I assume that we're going to have large groups of people saying, I'm interested in accounting. Okay, well, what does it mean, accounting? There are at least 50 different jobs in accounting that you can take if you say you want to be an accountant. So the purpose of this project is to get teams to focus in on 3 of those jobs, research them, look up what is a day in the life like, what are salary expectations, work-life balance. So that is the gist of our project. Baselining 3 different jobs, describing what they will look like in 5 years. So we'll be working with the Bureau of Labor Statistics information. And forecasting, what is this job projected to look like in 5 years' time? You will be selecting the jobs that you and your teammates want to focus on in your groups. So in our next class, we're going to finalize our groups. Your groups have to be 5 people. So I'm going to have to double check the numbers, but I think we should be at the 40 mark now with our 3 additions. You're very welcome. So we'll have groups of 5 people. And the 4th purpose is to learn how to manage our projects. So I hope you're starting to get the gist that you're going to be doing a project while simultaneously learning how to manage a project. Does anybody know what's the difference between a project and a process in an organization? A process is something continual. It's part of your overall job description. A project will have a finite start and end date. So a project could be anything in an organization. It could be implementing a new system. It could be restructuring your organization. It could be adding another component that employees need to be trained on and learn how to effectively use to publish the reports that they need to, if you will. So a project can be anything, but it has a start and an end date. Okay. If you flip over to page 7, it gives you a bit more details, and you can see the grading breakdown. So your oral presentation at the end of this term is 10 to 12 minutes. And note that I've said during this speech, only 2 members are presenting. So you remember back last year, your entire IP group had to present. This time, only 2 people from your group are going to be presenting. Anybody have an idea why? I've not made the 5 of you stand up here. Yes?
To kind of show that you have confidence that your team members will effectively deliver the message that you all agree on.
Okay, so trust in your team members that you helped prepare and those 2 are going to deliver the message. Other reasons, yes?
Forming an actual team where each team member does a certain role, but they don't really know everything.
Good. So some of us are going to be much more comfortable up here presenting than others. And some of us are going to have fantastic skills at collecting or collating data. So part of this is to get you to know your team members, talk to them, and understand who's good at what, who likes doing what. Because it's going to come as no surprise that the quality of our work output is that much better when we are comfortable and we enjoy what we're doing. So part of this is learning how to capitalize on your own comfort levels of work on a project. I saw another hand, Chris, with yours.
Yeah, I guess it also has to do with managing a project, allocating just what you're doing.
Good. Excellent. So all those three have hit the nail on the head. Because when you manage your project, there's going to be some people, for example, that need to manage a lot of the logistics. What's the progress? Where are we at? Have we done this? Have we finished that? What are the dependencies? Somebody else is going to be great at writing. Somebody else will be good at public speaking. So it'll be your job on your project teams to put the best people in those positions. And your assignments tonight are going to start helping you figure out how that should work or how it can work on your team. Your project management portfolio, those 6 items under there. The first one, interview guide. We're going to jump right in with that next time we meet in our second class. Part of your assignments to baseline these 3 jobs is that somebody needs to interview somebody in the field. Whatever jobs you choose, so you're going to need to develop an interview template of what are the questions you're going to ask, because this is going to be a professional you're going to interact with. And we'll talk a bit about how do you find this person, who would be a good type of person, what kinds of questions. I'll be giving you templates of a number of different questions you can pull from, and then we'll be working in class in your teams to start looking at what are the questions that we want to be asking in that interview. The interview has to be 45 minutes, and all of you will need to go into that interview with a set of questions. I don't want anybody going in completely cold. It should be a very professional interaction. Even if it is a friend of a parent, somebody you've known your entire lives, I want you to be professional when you go in there, so you'll have your questions already discussed with your team. Second one is project charter. That's going to be the document that we work on that will outline what is our project about, who's doing what, where is the timeline. Your project communication plan. Who do we need to talk to about this project? Who needs to know about this? What are all of the communication touch points that we're having? So we'll have a template to look at that. Your project description table. This is where about week 5, I think it is, we start talking about who's doing what. What are all of our tasks? What are all of our subtasks? What are the dependencies? How long does each task take? If somebody's doing this, can I start this next bit? And this is where you start to pull into your operations course. Because Professor Wu is going to talk to you about the critical path model and how you start figuring this out. And then she's going to talk to you about how you translate it into Microsoft Project. How do you do a project plan with a Gantt chart? Has anybody ever heard of a Gantt chart? Or know what it is? Okay, so you will find out in that class what we mean by a Gantt chart. Finally, we'll also then talk about weekly status reports. Now in this class, I'm not going to make you do a weekly one every week because we're not going to get to that until later on. What you will be having to do to submit 2 weekly status reports, and then you'll have an oral status report as I've outlined there. So we'll get to those points as we come to them. And you can see the points breakdown there for all of the grading. And along with the grading, essentially, I am completely open to discussing grades with you. But what I'm not in the business of doing is grade mongering. Meaning, please do not come to my office and say, well, I think you deserve a higher grade. Well, I would suspect anybody that got less than an A would wish they had a higher grade. I certainly will entertain the discussion with you, but I want you to come prepared to have a dialogue. So that means bring course materials, bring articles, bring support for why you feel that there's been an error. And I'm human. Sometimes it comes down to a mathematical error. If that is the case, certainly we can discuss it, but I don't want you to show up in my office and just say, well, I think this deserves an A. I want you to articulate why. And I'll be happy to entertain those discussions with you. Even if you're thinking of nonprofit, if there is a group that is interested in doing nonprofit work, I have no qualms about, I remember in your marketing class that the companies were chosen for you. In this particular class, it'll be to your advantage that you're honest about what you want to do, what you really want to research. Because it's going to help you figure out, do I really want to go down this path? What are my different options? If I'm in marketing, well, what does that really mean? Am I in market research? Am I a market analyst? Am I in product development? There's a lot of jobs. So be honest. The only caveat is that We cannot have groups of 1 or 2 people because in that case, this is a lot of work for 1 or 2 people for a 1 credit course. So we need groups of 5. So we might need to be a bit flexible that way. Okay, I briefly want to just walk you through the course schedule so you can get a sense of how this fits together before we get to our activity. Today we are going to start looking at your career field preference. So we're going to have a conversation about just generally what are you interested in. We're going to start breaking into groups. At the end of today's class, your assignments for next class in 2 weeks' time, you need to do 2 things. Actually, technically 3 things. But the first is going to be a complete personality test. And if you turn in your course packet to page 13, I've written out for you what is this assignment. So you will need to go to the website I've given you. It's humanmetrics.com. After we start talking today about general career field interests, I want you to go take this Young Man personality test. And I know you're going to say, Professor Taylor, we have done personality tests before, and I am certain that you have. The reason I want you to do this one is because it's going to spit out, once you score it, 2 types of profiles. And you need to print those out and bring them to our next class. The first one is the self-awareness and personal growth. So that takes your scores and looks at, as a person, outside of the professional realm, what is this assessment saying about your strengths? The second one is career choices. So it will also spit out a report that tells you good career choices for somebody that has a score like yours. Your score will be made up of 4 letters. It'll be something like ENST or ENJF. Okay, and it'll give you a detailed report. So I want you to take the assessment, click the button that says score it, a matrix will come up, and you'll see on the left-hand side there's a self-awareness and personal growth quadrant, and then right below it, career choices. Click on both of those, print those reports, read them, and come to class prepared with them. In addition, I want you to then do a brief Google search. I don't care what websites you go to. Type in that 4-letter score and some keywords like potential job or career interests or job profiles. There is a wealth of information using this 4-letter score and what types of careers are appropriate. So I just want you to go Google 2 sites, print those out, and bring them in as well. So you should have your self-awareness and personal growth score, your career choice score from Human Metrics, and then 2 other websites. Just print the page or print the information that gives you. Usually when you Google these, it'll give you a couple of paragraphs about potential career choices. It will start helping you narrow down. I'm interested in marketing. Is marketing, based on my assessment here, really a good fit? It doesn't mean that it's not. You can still certainly be interested in it. But the personality assessment will get at some of the strengths that you're at and match it more appropriately to careers. Now, the third component is to bring your leadership profile and self-assessment paper that you did last year in your management class in the fall. I suspect a number of you are going to tell me, I don't have that. I encourage you to dig through your files, mainly because this is part of our integrated curriculum, so we're supposed to be pulling things from all of our other classes and other years. I recognize that you might get rid of some things. I am hopeful that because we are in the age of technology that you all have it stashed somewhere on a hard drive. So if you can, bring this report to class. At a minimum, you should have read it and be familiar and remember what you talked about in that report. But to get around that, this is why we're doing this additional assessment, because I know all of you can do this. I can see there's questions. Yes?
You don't mean the 50-page thing, you mean the paper we wrote on the 50 pages.
Yes. Bring the paper that you wrote, because I know that is a very thick.
That's just 3%.
Yes. So I want you to know what those results were, but bring the paper that you assessed, the paper that you wrote about the assessment. We're going to be a bit on an honor system and be professionals. I want you all to look for this. If you have it in your files, bring it. If you don't, if you can't find it from Qualtrics, at least try to think back to what were your scores. And we'll just rely on this. But this is the most important, that personality test, the Human Metrics that's outlined on page 13. Be sure to do that and bring in those 4 printouts, because we'll rely on that. I recognize that The leadership profile, this is going to be the tricky part, is getting people to have documents from year to year. Other questions? Yes.
We're going to bring in the paper, not the results.
Right, just the paper.
Okay.
You do not have to lug around 50 pages all day long. Just the paper. Any other points on that? Okay, so the reason it is so important for you to bring that to class is because next week's class, or 2 weeks from now, that class, we're going to take the conversation that we started today. We're going to look at those personality metrics. We're going to look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and how you can start finding out more information. And in class, you're going to use those to finalize your groups. So today you'll start that dialogue, and next time we meet, we need to finalize by the end of class all the groups. And that's why I want you to know, what are you interested in? What are these results? What can they tell us about our career interests? So week 3, that is when you will get the actual statement of work. The statement of work is a document that a client will hand to you and say, this is what I want done. So that will outline a bit more detail, what it is you have to do, how you go about doing it, and there'll be key information in there that you will need to add to some of your other documents that we'll be working on. Week 3 is also where we will start talking about the career field interview you're going to do. We're going to start that template of questions, and it'll be a good time for you and your teams to start thinking about, is there anybody that you know? How can you start networking and finding people that you might be able to interview? Week 4 is when we go over the project charter and communication plan. So what is the team agreeing to do? How are you going to communicate? And week 5 and 6 is where we get to those questions about who's doing what, who has what skills. By this point, you should really know your team members and know who is comfortable speaking, who's very good at details and keeping track of things, who's the data analytic person that can go in and find anything and organize it immediately. So 5 and 6 is where we will break down the tasks, assign roles, and figure out how to put this all into a project plan and a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart, I didn't tell you this before, but I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview. It's a visual representation of your project plan. So it shows the tasks, the dependencies, and who's doing what.